Have you ever gone out of your way to avoid people? Not because you're rude, but because you're hiding. Stay with me on this one. Okay, real talk. Last week, I ran into a friend at the grocery store who I hadn't seen in a while. And this wasn't the wave from across the aisle kind of run into. It was the full, oh my goodness, how are you? Y'all, as always, I had not done my hair. I was in the same shirt I was gardening in that morning, and I was balancing a whole cart of Sam's Sprite. And when I say Sam's Sprite, I mean like that's all the man drinks. So I think I buy anywhere between 4 to 8 6 packs of Sprite a week. Yeah, I probably shouldn't even tell you that. Plus, his other junk food. The man loves cookies and, like, oh my goodness, don't get me started. But it is what it is. And of course, my first instinct was to duck down the cereal aisle like I was back in middle school trying to avoid some random classmate. And then I felt that little knot in my stomach. You know the one that tells you everyone is thinking about your whole life story, even though they honestly probably could care less. So I did the thing we all do. I smiled like everything was fine. Hey, how are you? And pushed my cart right on past. But then she called out my name, hollered it, and I froze. For the next 10 minutes, we had a conversation that was half catching up and half me thinking about every single awkward thing that's happened to me in the past 5 years. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It probably was boring her. But afterwards, I walked to my car and I realized I literally spent more energy hiding than the whole encounter even took up. Why do we do that? Why do we spend minutes or hours or even days plotting all of these detours so we can avoid a 2 minute chat? Because somewhere along the way, shame taught us to believe that being seen is the same as being judged. Literally, when you've been picked apart by a family rumor or a breakup or a divorce or a job you've lost or just a altogether a season that's just left you completely raw, it's easier to plan an escape route than to actually let someone look at you. One time I texted a friend that I was skipping a little small group get together because I didn't want to be asked the usual, how are you? Like, really, really, how are you doing? Y'all, I didn't feel brave enough to say, I'm okay, and also falling apart. So, what did I do? I opted for invisibility. A week later, that same friend showed up on my doorstep with soup and a blanket and literally no interrogation. She just sat next to me. It fixed more than my plan to hide ever could. We all hide in all kinds of places. The bathroom at work, scrolling until the world feels quieter, behind social media posts that sound upbeat, but literally they hide the truth. And in the middle of the day, taking a longer route home just so you don't run into people. We took our messy stories into a trunk and we hope nobody ever asks to see them and they just get buried under loads of dust and stuff. But y'all, hiding doesn't keep you safe, it keeps you lonely. And sometimes the very thing that frees us, a short, awkward conversation, is exactly what we are most afraid to do. That grocery aisle moment, it stuck with me because it's small and ordinary, and it's exactly where grace shows up. It wasn't a sermon or a life overhaul, it was just a friend who asked, hey, how are you doing? And later, the one who brought soup over and just sat. Those are the tiny interruptions that prove we don't have to perform anything to be loved. We just have to be willing to be seen, messiness and all. Which is why I keep thinking about that woman who walked to a well in the hottest part of the day, not because she liked the heat, but because she wanted to hide. What if the thing you're doing to dodge the looks is exactly where you'll run into the help you didn't know you needed? Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, woman in a well, pull up a chair, take a seat, get all comfy, and let's do this. Hey, y'all, welcome back to Unscripted Conversations. I'm Ashley, and I'm so glad you decided to park yourself here next to me for a little while. Pour your coffee, grab whatever you're stirring in the kitchen, and let's just sit on the porch together for a minute. It's warm. It's gorgeous weather over here in my neck of the woods. Hey, if you're new, hey, friend, pull up a chair. And if you're a regular, you already know the rules around here. We talk like friendly little neighbors, laugh like crazy sometimes. Sometimes we cry. But all in all, we try to make a little sense out of the everyday mess with a little help from the good book. Lord, before we get into it, would you calm our hearts just for a second? Speak quiet and clear through these words. Help anything I say land where it needs to and reach the one who needs it today. Maybe the one who's worn out, maybe the one who thinks they've got nothing left to offer. Remind us that you meet us in the middle of our ordinary. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Okay, here's the thing I've been thinking about all this week: what it looks like when Jesus shows up in the most unlikely places with the most unlikely people and says something that changes everything, even though nobody thought anything special was happening. And the story that kept coming back to me is this one we call the woman at the well. I'm not sure if you know it. It's John chapter 4. Picture this with me, okay? It's midday, not morning, not evening, dead noon. The sun is doing the thing where it's pressing down and everybody feels slow. It's hot. People don't normally go to the well in the hottest part of the day. It's common sense. You go in the cool of the morning or when the sun starts to dip, when your water won't make you sweat just thinking about it. So, who goes at noon? Somebody that wants privacy or somebody that's avoiding eyeballs and sweet talk and all the gossip that follows you around like a shadow. You know what happens? You know what happens. Now, the well itself. This isn't some cute backyard pump. We're talking about Jacob's well. Now, generations have come to this place. It's deep, it's worn smooth by the feet of so many people who come thirsty. This literally is where history sits and watches you draw water. And then there's Jesus. He's tired from traveling. He's sitting on the edge, probably leaning back just a little, wanting a sip and maybe a minute of rest. The disciples head into town to get food, but Jesus stays. Here comes the woman. Now, she wasn't walking in like she was strolling down Main Street. She came in with a bucket, maybe shoulders set to the task, head low, because honestly, the way her life's been stitched together, she's used to looking down. She arrives at midday alone, which tells us she's already been through the whispering and the stares. There's a backstory there: culture, shame, relationships gone bad. And the Bible gives us glimpses without even laying out a whole judgment parade. She's been married 5 times, and now she's with someone who's not even her husband. That's messy and complicated, y'all. And in her world, that marks you, and it marks you bad. So she gets there, and Jesus, a traveling teacher, a man from Galilee, someone that she wouldn't have expected to even talk to her, starts up a conversation. He asks for water. Now, imagine the audacity. Jesus, a Jewish man, talking to a Samaritan woman. That alone flips every social script. Jews and Samaritans didn't exactly go to the same church picnic, if you know what I mean. They had history, borders, reasons to keep their distance. And regardless of the history, men just don't talk to women in public like that, especially not women who carry a reputation. So you've already got layers and layers of this should not be happening. But it does. He asked her for a drink. A simple human, disarming. She's like, wait, You're asking me? And he says something wild. If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. Living water. Not water that carries you home and you can put it in a jar and sit it on the shelf, or water that dries up when the sun gets really hot and mean. Living water. Something that springs, something that refreshes forever. In the middle of this awkward, tender exchange, he starts raw and real. He doesn't shame her. He names her pain without vilifying her. He offers her something that goes deeper than her mistakes. And she's like any of us, starting off a little defensive. Tell me you wouldn't. Then she rolls into a little curiosity, then maybe a little hopeful and skeptical all at once. She wants this water he's talking about. I mean, who wouldn't? But she's still trying to process this man who seems to see right through social labels. And when he tells her about life, that she has had 5 husbands and the man she's with now isn't married to her, that's not gossip. That's seeing her. That's knowing her life. And she recognizes in that moment that he's more than just a traveler passing through. He's a prophet. She hears something she can't ignore. The conversation spirals into worship, talk, and truth. And spoiler alert, Jesus straight up tells her, I who speak to you am he, the Messiah, revealed right there at the well. But here's what I want us to talk about. She doesn't run from the well. She doesn't hide out of shame and let it swallow her. Where does she go? She runs to town, not to shame herself, but to tell people. She's excited, y'all. She goes back to the people who probably judged her the most and says, y'all, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. That's boldness. That's joy that breaks through the scab of shame. And as a result, people come and they believe her because she became the one who brought the good news. All right. Now, let's pull that forward a little bit. So, what in the story sticks with you? For me, there's a couple of things. First, Jesus meets me where we are, not where we think we should be or after we tidy up our mess. That was air quotes, mess. He meets us in the everyday, in the shame, in the awkward. He sits right by us, holding our hand, literally. Second, people who are least likely to represent faith sometimes carry the most honest testimony. Why? Because they have felt the mercy. And third, those quiet, surprising encounters, they change people. Why? Not because they're flashy, but because they're real. So let's talk about that first part. Jesus meets you where you are. I think it's easy for us to put Jesus in a box. We put him in a box that require clean hands and a perfectly put together neat life. Maybe we think we have to wait until we clean up our story, get our act together before he'll show up. Y'all, that's not how he rolls. He showed up at a well in the middle of the hottest part of a day to a woman who knew what it was like to be looked down on. He didn't wait till she was presentable. He walked right into the chaos and literally said, I see you. I'm here. If you're listening and you think, Ashley, that's sweet, but I'm literally too far gone, I'm going to stop you right there. The woman at the well wasn't some angelic figure with a halo and a spotless record. She was a human. And what are humans? We are complicated. We're exhausted from not being able to rest. We have a million things going on. We've made mistakes. We are human. When Jesus spoke to her, he didn't lecture her. He literally offered her living water. He didn't make her repeat a checklist or anything. He simply revealed himself. That's the good news, y'all. That means your mess, whatever you've done, your mistakes, everything, none of it disqualifies you. It's where his mercy fits best. Now, the second piece, the unlikely witness, there's something about someone who's been through the ringer that really makes their testimony cut straight through the noise. I mean, think about it. The disciples could have gone into town and said, "Oh, yeah, Jesus is great." And people would have nodded, "Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's awesome." But a woman, a Samaritan woman, known and most likely scorned by her own community, runs back and says, "Come see this man who told me everything I've ever done." People are listening at that moment. Why? Because it was authentic. It wasn't church language, polished theology, speech. It was raw. He changed my life. I love that because sometimes we get hung up on needing the right title or the right resume, if you would, to talk about God. Newsflash. You don't need a pulpit to tell someone about the difference he's making in your life. You just need a story, your story, honest kind. And maybe you feel like your story disqualifies you from speaking based on what happened in the past. But it might be what makes your voice the exact one someone else needs to hear. Now, let me put it in a real life porch chat example. Okay. A friend of mine, we'll call her Lisa, used to think she had to have it all together before she could say anything about God at work. I mean, she's been through divorce, messy dating seasons, and a job that's left her tired and a little bit ashamed. She's kept quiet for years in her small group because she thought other people's spiritual resumes were cleaner. Now, one night, after she stopped pretending, she told one short, honest version of a night when she asked God to show up after everything fell apart. And one woman in that group, she was 20 something, who felt like living for Jesus required perfection. She started crying and she said, "I've been waiting so long to hear someone else who gets it." Lisa's story changed her, not because Lisa had all the answers, but because she had been to the well and came back with living water. That's the power right there. It's not about the polished talk. It's about the person who says, "This is where I was, and this is what happened when Jesus met me or when I found God." I want to take a second and talk about one other thing. The moment where Jesus names her story without shame in it, he points at her life. He doesn't condemn it, he acknowledges it. And then what does he do? He invites her. Isn't that wild? He sees the truth, calls it by name, and then offers something better. That doesn't mean that there's no call to change. It means change begins with being seen, not shamed, not talked about, not gossip behind somebody's back. Far too often, we use shame to motivate, and shame only buries people deeper. Grace reveals, points to a better way, and gives the power to walk it out. So if you're sitting there thinking, "I don't even know if I can be brave enough to talk to anybody about this," let me remind you, Being brave doesn't mean being perfect. Brave means telling two truths: where you were and where you found God, how you found God. That's it. Small, honest, simple. Let's pull this into every day. How does this story shape into how we live Monday through Friday? Hopefully, Saturday and Sunday as well. Here are two practical ways I've been trying to live it out. Number one, very easy. Show up where people least expect kindness. Y'all, that could be the checkout line with the stressed out cashier. She could be new. She could be having a bad day. Things cannot be going right. Nobody knows. Or it could be the coworker that nobody invites out to lunch, or the neighbor who keeps to themselves. Not everything has to be a deep conversation. Sometimes it's just small, consistent kindness that says, I see you. Jesus asked for a drink. He started small. You can too. Number two, tell your story. Plainly tell your story. You don't have to have a neatly packaged testimony. Just say one sentence: God met me when I felt most lost. Or God showed up in the middle of my mess. Short, honest, and true. That one sentence can literally be the invitation somebody needs to look up and say, wait. Tell me more. How did it happen? What were you doing? What was going on when you found God? When he came to you, you heard him. What was going on? What were you doing? Ha, good stuff, y'all. All right. Before I pray and send you back into your day with something to think about, I want to give y'all permission to be real about how you're feeling. If you're tired of performing, or if you're exhausted from pretending to be a little further along than you are, listen to me now. Jesus doesn't care. Jesus is not interested in your resume or your checklist. He's interested in your heart. He will be the one that will meet you right smack in the middle of the day in that heat. He will sit at your well. He will ask for water. And when you respond, even imperfectly, he will offer you the living water. Let's pray. Lord, thank you that you show up right where we are, even when we feel unworthy or overlooked. Thank you for meeting us right in the middle of our mess and offering what only you can give: peace, living water, and a new start. Help us to be brave, God, enough to tell one short, honest story of how you've met us, and kind enough to offer small acts of presence to the people in our lives. Heal the places that feel wounded, lift the shame that always tries to keep us back, and remind us that we don't have to perform for your love. You've already given it to us freely. We just need to come to you. Meet the one listening right now, Father, in their well, wherever they are. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. All right, y'all, if this one gave you a little nudge, would you help me spread that little nudge out? Share it with someone who needs to hear they are seen. Head over to the website for today's blog notes. I will drop the passage, John 4, and a couple of reflection questions. There's a free printable Bible study you can use if you want to journal your way through studying with me. And hey, if you've got a minute, leave a rating or review on the blog post, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or YouTube, or wherever you're listening. Little things like that actually help me so much and get me in front of more people. And that's how we grow this little porch circle, y'all, without any fancy sponsors. Yet. Yet. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me. I really don't take it for granted. I appreciate every single one of you. I'll catch you the next time, and be gentle with yourself this week. Thanks, y'all.